Okay, good evening. Sorry. This is a public meeting of the School Board of the West Bend Joint School District Number 1. More than 24 hours prior to the meeting, notice of the time, place, date, and subject matter of this meeting was posted at the entrance doors at the Education Service Center and at the West Bend Community Memorial Library. A copy, was also sent to the Daily News, WIBD, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, and other media sources that have requested notice of our meetings. I ask at this time from the superintendent if the meeting was properly posted.
Yes, it was.
Thank you. I'd like to call the meeting to order at the time of 5:32. Note that Mr. Chris Weigart and Mrs. Tani Schmidt are both absent and excused, and if you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd be looking for an approval of the agenda.
Motion approved.
You have a first.
I need a second.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All those in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have come to the public participation portion of our agenda. I have one card for this evening. If anyone else wishes to address the board, please come up after the first speaker and present me with your card. I'm going to quickly summarize the board policy. It is board policy 187. It prescribes the nature and the procedures for this segment. I summarize the policy at this time, but copies of the policy are available at the back of the room, and I urge you to familiarize yourself with the policy in its entirety. Residents of the district, parents of children in district schools, and employees of the district may participate. Participants desiring to address the board should obtain and complete a participant comment card near the entry and turn it over to the president prior to the meeting or when allowed by the president. Participants may comment concerning an agenda item or a non-agenda item. Each participant will be called to the podium and given 3 minutes to speak. The participant must state his or her name and relationship to the district. This information will appear in the minutes of the meeting. The board will not engage in debate concerning the remarks or take immediate action. The board may refer the matter to the superintendent, a committee, or take remarks into consideration in further action. Board Policy 872 provides a formal process for citizen complaints, and Board Policy 520 provides a formal process for employee complaints. The board recommends use of these procedures as they guarantee a fair and timely response. I will invite participants forward to speak. There's a visible timer to help manage your time. To help ensure that all participants are heard and the meeting runs efficiently, please abstain from conversation, comment, or applause during or after public participation. So tonight we only have one speaker, Mr. Schultz, if you'd like to state your name and your relationship to the district.
Hi there, Bill Schultz. Is this working? Not sure. Bill Schultz, taxpayer and father of a student in the district. When the SU3 survey became available for the general public, I was enthused to fill it out and be a voice, although one that isn't listened to very much, as to how I feel these dollars could be best utilized. While filling it out, I noticed under the section, please select 3 priority areas for the district. The first item was to use this money to help balance the budget. Not sure why the budget isn't already balanced. Why does this administrative team feel a need to spend money that isn't there? Does anyone in this district truly know how to live within their means? The district got lucky with having these dollars available to use basically however they see fit, as per past comments. If these words are true, I strongly suggest the district reevaluates its resource and curriculum in reading, writing, and arithmetic. These subjects are not being taught like we all know them to be taught when we were in school. I oftentimes feel like a letdown when I sit down to help my son with his math homework because I wasn't taught array tables and ratio tables, which takes a simple multiplication problem like 25 times 15 and turns it into 2 to 3 times more work than the standard algorithm. The standard algorithm was never broken, and it didn't need to be fixed. Perhaps this district suffers from a little bit of FOMO. Let me tell you, you can't miss out on what you can't afford. Perhaps maybe we could use a little Dave Ramsey in our lives. I'm shocked this survey had nothing regarding school security, or rather more nonsense about how to continue to mitigate the thing. Let's discuss school security. Why don't our schools have more security cameras? Are we using our school liaison officers the best we can? Personally, I would be all for hiring combat veterans who have been in high pressure and high intensity situations to help patrol our school and provide clearance to everyone entering any of the schools. If not a combat veteran, let's get our LEOs to start using this as a standard of practice. While there's a low risk of something happening, bad, terribly bad happening in West Bend, there's still a risk and we need to be prepared for any situation. Installing locks and doorbell cameras might also be another good idea to help keep unwanted guests out of our schools. If this money is used to balance a budget and money is still available, can resources and materials that will challenge the students instead of enabling laziness because it's too easy be put into effect? For example, the 1776 social studies resource apparently required a college reading level, so the district settled on a resource with numerous grammatical errors and potential political bias. In my honest opinion, the school district needs more leaders, people who aren't afraid to speak up when something is wrong, people who are willing to stand tall and strong when the going gets tough. The times of being complacent and following along the status quo are over. I'd like to think that's why you're all on the school board, but I have my doubts as to what some of your true motives really are.
Thank you. I have no other cards, so I will close the public participation portion of the meeting. Moving on to the consent agenda. Tonight, underneath the consent agenda, we have minutes of the June 20th regular board meeting and the executive session. We have 9 contracts and 3 transfers. We have 2 resignations, no retirements, and the Fund 41 project amendment door security. And I am looking for a motion.
Motion approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The consent agenda passes. Right now we'll move on to our reports. So we have our district nursing report. I'd like to welcome Amy Brager, our district nurse, to the podium.
Good evening. Oh, let's see here. Good evening, members of the board. Is it on?
You are on.
Okay. I just wanted to take a minute. I'm Emily Melstrand. I'm the Director of Student Services, and I wanted to lead tonight by welcoming Amy Brager. Amy is our district nurse, and she is going to do an update on our, basically she's going to do a nursing report on the previous year, 2021-22. And I just wanted to take a minute. I know this isn't going to be a part of her report, but I really think it's important that we just take a second to honor the amazing work that she has done over the course of the past 2 years. She has an awesome team of professionals who work to support our students in terms of their physical, sometimes their emotional health as they're coming in and out of our district clinics. And Amy's leadership has been fantastic. As you know, the last couple of years have presented some challenges that were unexpected. And she rose to the occasion in every single instance to modify plans, change plans on the fly, and support students as her first priority throughout that. So I'm going to introduce to you Amy Brager, and she is going to take over and present the 21-22 nursing report. So thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Emily. That was very nice to you. Hi, everyone. I am Amy Brager, the district nurse. I have been working as a nurse in this district for 8 years, 5.5 under the role of the district nurse. And as you can see up there on the screen, that is my oldest of almost 3 children. So I'm excited about my new role this fall as a parent of the West Bend School District also. He's enrolled in 4K, and we're super excited about the adventures that lie ahead. So we're going to go over just a couple things to summarize our school year last year. Listed here is the breakdown of all the health room professionals. A health room professional can be either an RN, an LPN, or a medical assistant in our district. And each school has one of those assigned to them with exception to early childhood. And then the high school building has 2 nurses on any given day, given the volume and size of their buildings. But we also have support staff that floats throughout the district part-time, and those individuals may cover absences or if there's a need on a field trip for a medical student, or really any projects that we have that we need support on, and that's actually how I got started in the district. So they saved the day on lots of ways. This is just the framework for our 21st century school nursing practice. It comes from the National Association of School Nurses, and most school nurses in Wisconsin and across the country use this model to serve their students. We have a wide variety of medical needs and different conditions in our district, all ranging with different amounts and volumes of needs. But this is just kind of a breakdown of our most common. So you'll see we had 283 students that have inhalers that use inhalers for asthma within our schools. There are 23 students last year with type 1 diabetes. If you know and love anyone with type 1 diabetes, you know how much care and maintenance and self-advocacy and education goes into having that condition. So our health room professionals spend a lot of time with these students and their families to help them succeed in school and then in life after school as well. And then we also train unlicensed assistant personnel in each of our buildings to assist with card counting, insulin administration, really whatever would be needed beyond if a health room professional was not there or if they needed additional support. You'll see under emergency medications, we have 186. That is mostly EpiPens and Diastat. So EpiPens would be used and have been used in our schools for anaphylactic reactions or life-threatening allergies. Diastat is something that would be used for someone that's having a seizure, has a seizure disorder already. There are a couple other emergency medications listed in that, but those are the two primary ones that we would see in that count. Under medications administered, there are 17,268. So that is primarily prescription medication. There are PRN, like Tylenol, ibuprofen kind of dosage in that number as well. But it's mostly prescription medication for, I would say, ADHD is probably our number one cause, or our number one diagnosis. And then kind of onto that is the last number there, which is the hardest to obtain in our database. You'll see there it says over 12% of our students have a diagnosed mental health or behavioral health condition. Really that number is 12% of what we know, right? So those are students that we know have a diagnosis, they're receiving treatment or medication within our schools. There are a lot more students that we see that exhibit symptoms of mental health or behavioral health that are not receiving a diagnosis or treatment at this time. So we know that number is growing as well. Of our clinic dispositions, we saw 63,158 students in our clinics last year. That's the highest I've ever seen it. And that I have a feeling that mental health and behavioral health has something to do with that. So we're seeing an increase of students coming in with somatic symptoms. They might have a headache or a stomach ache or something that is definitely linked to some sort of anxiety, depression, those types of related conditions. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple of slides, but I think that's part of why that number continues to grow. Our jobs, we always say in the schools, are to keep kids in school safe and healthy and ready to learn. So the 4,323 students sent home were determined by the student or the health room professional. So that number is reflective of health room professional thinks you need to go either to see a provider or to go home. All the rest, up to 60-some thousand, were either sent back to class after an intervention or resting in the clinic for a while, or picked up by a parent or guardian. The calls to 911, we had 18 this last school year, which is also pretty high compared to other school years. Sometimes paramedics will come and assess, and by the time they're here, everything's kind of settled down, so the student may go home with family and monitor from there. But out of that 18, we did have 11 transported to the hospital after that assessment from paramedics, which is probably our highest number that I've seen yet also. I'm not going to read this whole slide to you, but one of the things I ask my health room professionals to do at the end of every school year as part of their evaluation process is to do a self-evaluation. And one of the 3 nurses that work in our high school has been a veteran. She is a 20-year plus nurse in a variety of different medical clinical spaces. And she just had a really great summary, I think, of what the day in the life of a school nurse might look like. A lot of people think that school nursing is super boring. You're sitting on your butt all day, passing out Band-Aids. And I unfortunately used to be one of those people. Prior to my life here, I worked for 8 years at Children's Wisconsin in the pediatric ICU. I specialized in pediatric trauma, and I would not have thought a single day that I would be a school nurse someday in my life. It was simply something too boring for me. I was forced to do a school health clinical through going back to get my bachelor's degree, and that's what kept me here, or wound me up here, and I loved it. It was so astonishing to me how critical the needs were, how the community needed nurses in the schools, how the medical professionals are just so necessary on a daily basis for assessment and using expertise and really providing a lot of resource for a variety of things. So just if you get a chance to scan that over, she talks a little bit about in 1 week in the high school how she had 6 different emergencies that she responded to, and one of them was a student with a diabetic emergency, one was a student that was having a seizure for the first time, one was a student in a physical altercation. She had to work closely with the police department. So I mean, really, you never know what you're going to step into on any given day, and I'm super proud of our team, not just at the high school, but throughout the district, because it really requires a high assessment skill and an ability to resource for their teams. We're not going to talk a lot about COVID, but it was a great deal of our work last school year still. We, in some cases, felt that it was even harder last year because the recommendations and the updates and the guidelines kept changing, and we had to stay on top of that. Superintendent Wimmer and I had several phone calls at 9 p.m. on the Saturday saying, they just changed this. What do we need to meet with the people and call all our people. So it just was constantly updating what we were trying to make sure that we are doing the best for our community. I can't even express to you how much work the health room professionals did. I can't even put that into words. But it was certainly a lot of work. We had the cumulative number there that you see of positive investigations. It says a little over 1,000. I will tell you that's not exact. That's why I have an asterisk next to it. Somewhere towards the end of the year, we stopped doing positive investigations and went towards cases, but we lumped together a couple different populations for privacy reasons. So it's in the ballpark, but just so everyone knows, it's not an exact number if people are counting at home. And then I just thought I added this slide picture because I went to a school nurse conference in April, and I never in my life would have imagined that the keynote presenter who spoke about COVID and how it affected our work as school nurses would open their keynote speech with Crazy Train by Ozzy Osbourne. So that was kind of interesting that was the reflective summary of my career at that point. Aside from COVID, we still managed to get a couple things done. We have our certified CPR instructors on staff, so they work to obtain CPR certification for over 80 staff members. We still did all of our medication training and unlicensed assistive personnel training. That UAP training is not just for students with diabetes. We also have students that have urinary catheterization, G-tube feeds, other types of medical procedures that we train additional staff in the buildings for. We were able to bring back our vision screenings with the West Bend Lions Club and expanded that from kindergarten to first grade also, since we didn't catch them the year prior. The dental program we helped to coordinate. We worked on our Project Adam drills. We served on a variety of committees and consults. A huge thank you to the West Bend Fire Department and West Bend Police Department. They're an awesome partner in this community. They always help us to provide education to our staff and help with our Project Adam drills. They're always great to respond in emergencies. So we really appreciate working with them really closely. And then we still provided our clinical experiences for the BSN staff, and that is, or BSN nurses, and that is something that is dear to my heart since that's where I kind of came from here. Did you have a question?
No, just Project Adam, that reference is for AED training specifically, so that middle picture, that's what you see, that's what that means, so it's in reference to that, that's the name of it.
And thank you so much. All of our sites are heart safe through Project Adam. So we all have teams designated to training, and we work with our fire department pretty closely and our police departments as well, to make sure we maintain our designation and practice our drills throughout the school year. And then lastly, our district immunization compliance this year was still above 99%. Which makes me a happy camper, because if it's below 99%, the state requires exclusion of students for the following school year. So our team works really hard, making hundreds of phone calls and a variety of other communication efforts to make sure that we don't have to put our students through that.
And just a reminder to our public, Wisconsin is a state with personal conviction waivers, all of that. So our compliance isn't that 99% of our kids are vaccinated, it's that we have either entered the vaccinations and we've received a waiver for medical reasons or a personal conviction waiver, and that's law. So that's what that means.
And that's why it's super important. Thank you for, if the nurse is bothering you a million times to sign a waiver,
Just let us know.
we just need to know which way you're gonna roll, and then we can have it logged on there so that we are in compliance with the state. So some nursing goals that we have for the next school year. We are super excited to have some more time to get back to the projects that we are passionate about. Usually each of our health room professionals takes on something within their site that they can find improvement upon that's health related. We know as a district we have a lot of work to do to improve the mental health and meet the mental health rise that's kind of happening in our communities all over the place. But with that, we will be collaborating with student services to increase that, or to work together to strengthen that model. We're planning to expand the vision screenings because we received some evidence that vision changes, I guess, around 4th, 5th grade. So hopefully we will include 4th and 5th grade in our screenings this year, as well as the kindergarten level. And then over the course of last school year, I was nominated and elected to the board of directors for the Wisconsin Association of School Nursing, and I was re-elected in April, so I am excited to continue to serve on that board. I basically serve what the equivalent of CISA 6, so District 6 and CISA 6 are the same people, and all the district nurses within there, so it's been a great learning experience so far, and the networking has been wonderful. And I hope to bring some of that education opportunities back to our staff too. So thank you so much for letting me present to you tonight. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Anyone have questions for Amy? On behalf of the board, thank you.
Just one quick question.
We can't go,
I'm sorry,
for the audience.
we
can
don't-
get that
Oh, I'm
after.
sorry. I apologize.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry. So anyways, I wanted to thank you on behalf of the board, and please thank your team, because we know it's critical work that you do, and you know, looking at your numbers, some of those numbers, as you stated, were the highest that you've seen, so obviously the highest probably in district history. So hopefully we can continue to do some not necessarily reactive work, but some proactive work in the future, which it sounds like your goals really look like that's what you're headed towards. So again, thank you and congratulations on your election and your upcoming new little addition. And welcome to the West Bend School District family as parent, because it's a great place to be, so we're excited.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, that's me.
I'm lost without Chris tonight, I apologize. So our next report would be our superintendent's report from Superintendent Wimmer, please.
I know we had a question from the audience there. Feel free to grab any one of the staff members and we can answer that after. Right now it's just reserved for board time, but we're happy to answer those questions. I'm going to show these last board meeting. There were some glasses left behind. We haven't had a request for an owner. So if there was anyone in the audience that night, we'll put it in our next newsletter too. They've gone unclaimed. I hate for someone to be missing their glasses. So with that, I know Amy was talking about our collaboration with our first responders in the community as part of our continuation of that. We will have and host first responder training, the police, fire, etc. We'll be using the high school facility Large portions of the high school campus for training Wednesday, July 20th through Saturday, July 23rd. So we'll remind families in our community of that, because on those days you'll see a lot of emergency vehicles up there, and I don't want anyone to panic thinking that something is amiss with students or staff. So just, you know, welcome them to our campus to use the facilities for training exercises, and we'll remind community of that later. We talked a little bit about the ESSER survey at the last board meeting. We formally approved that. That was launched. We sent the district newsletter out a little early. We published today on Monday versus Wednesday, just to give people another reminder. We sent press releases, we sent it directly to families, community members. Just a reminder, can subscribe to our newsletter. It'll come to you directly by email, and told people to share it far and wide. So that is again open through Wednesday. So just a reminder, it's all over our website. If you can't find it, give us a call. We're happy to lead you to where you can get that. And again, it's important to note that the funds are one-time federal funds. And if you're interested in more information around those federal funds, those one-time funds, where they've come from, where they've gone thus far, visit our website. There's a whole page dedicated to that. And we're, again, just making sure to reiterate, those are our one-time funds. So while they've been used in a variety of manner, we just need to be cognizant of that going forward. Out-of-country travel is going to be resuming, so that's a big new item. So I just wanted to give the board a little bit of background, because you're going to be seeing, normally you would see these requests in fall and in spring, because they more run on a cycle and they'd come about a year in advance. But with countries opening up travel, guidelines shifting, those kinds of things, we're excited to be able to put together 2 trips for your action. That would be for France in March of this spring, and Germany in March for this spring. So that information generally we bring to the board. It's a structured process for discussion first and then action, but just with timing and how things are unfolding, I thought I would foreshadow that here, make sure the board has the information so that we can actually put it on a next agenda. It's really critical for the kids to get a jump on that for any fundraising that they're going to do to help offset the costs, given that that trip is going to be right here before you know it in March. So out-of-country travel, just for our public and new board members, it's an extension of, it might be a foreign language class, it might be another service class, but it's designed to be an extension of their learning in the classroom, and we haven't traveled outside the country since 2019. I know that Assistant Superintendents Andy Sarnow and Laura Jackson were both highly involved with the principals and those who usually do out-of-country trips to kind of take a new look with a new perspective, what needs to be put in place. There'll be trip insurance, there'll be different components to cover our families, make sure that there's not exposure for, you know, financial, if something should happen, that kind of thing. So all those checks and balances we'll go through. But be ready to look at that at our future for action. So are there any questions or things you want me to make sure that we include? Again, because it's out of the norm for us to bring an item for action the first time you see it, but there's a lot of procedural pieces that are consistent with out-of-country trips. Are there any things you want to make sure we speak to that evening?
I think, you know, the trip insurance is critical, obviously, and then maybe just understanding what the cancellation type of information looks like. You know, is there some type of act or clause in there? Should there be some health crisis, whatever?
Yeah, we encounter that, and you know, certainly, you know, quarantine was the biggest thing to start navigating and understanding if there's different rules and what those look like. But we'll make sure and bring that forward as part of the discussion.
Yeah, and then I guess I wouldn't mind seeing, and I realize this will change, but different countries have different rules as to, you know, what happens, how often people have to test in their community. I would hate for our students to go and all get quarantined to some little tiny hotel room and not be able to enjoy their trip. So I want to make sure that there's, you know, ample opportunity for that not to happen.
If anything should come up, if you think of any questions or things you want us to make sure to include in that presentation of information so that you're feeling comfortable with a call for action that evening, just reach out and let me know. Again, just looking forward to restoring that experience for our kids, but as you said, making sure we're not, you know, exposing them to some risk financially, things of that nature. That's all I have to report.
Anyone have other questions for Superintendent Wimmer, board members? Okay, we will move on then to our action items. So this evening we have the annual parental notice of standards. I'd like to have Laura Jackson come forward, our Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning.
Good evening, board members. Thank you for having me again tonight. The annual notice of annual parental notice of standards is in place every year so that the board approves the notice going home to families. We have the opportunity to put it up on our website, and we'll always include it in our newsletter, but it's just the notice that these are the standards that are going to be in place for the upcoming school year. All of the standards that you have before you have been previously approved by the board, and we do know that the state is looking at health standards, so we expect there to be some periods of public feedback on that. And we're going to be taking a really close look at the new world language standards and math standards again this year. But the standards that are approved are on the list, and that would be ready to be posted for families. Do you have any questions about the notice?
Anyone? Questions for Laura? We did see this prior at a meeting.
Yes, and Ms. Erdat did a wonderful summary of it from the curriculum committee as well.
So then I'd like to make a motion to approve the annual parental notice of academic standards. Second by Melanie. Everyone in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. And then I believe this is also you, the French Advanced Placement Chemistry and Advanced Placement Environmental Science textbooks.
Correct. We also spoke about this at the last board meeting, and just to remind you, the French courses that are French 1, 2, 3, and 4 will use a portion of these textbooks as well. Have been reviewed by staff, have been really looked at and dug deeply into. They've dug deeply into the text, and then we put these out for public comment. We also put out for public comment the chemistry textbook for AP chemistry, which is advanced placement chemistry. So students who take that class have the opportunity to earn college credits. And AP environmental science, again, a course that follows the College Board agenda and syllabi, and gives students the opportunity to take a test and potentially earn college credit for those courses. So all of these textbooks were vetted by staff. We put them out for public comment. I did not receive any public feedback on these. We talked about this at our last board meeting. I did update the costs based on actual student numbers and the 3-year trend of students enrolled in the courses and projecting those forward. So the costs are updated from the previous presentation or previous information received. It includes the costs of textbooks for the students as well as the teacher resources and teacher training.
Any questions for Laura? We'll be looking for a motion then?
Correct.
I'll make a motion to approve the French Advanced Placement Chemistry and Advanced Placement Environmental Science Primary Resource textbooks.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you, that motion passes. All right, looks like we're on to the discussion portion. If Mr. Lenny Hansen, our Director of Human Resources, could join us for the 2022-2023 Certified Staff Expertise Pay and Micro-Credential Offering. Say that fast 5 times, that is the mouthful.
Say it 5 times, I'll have this slide.
All right, Lenny.
Glasses too, again.
Right, and like, we have an extra pair here, Lenny. This is when we miss Tim Carter, who usually has all this up for us.
All right, we were in the expertise pay piece, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
So what we'll be doing tonight is just a real brief refresher around the certified staff compensation model, as well as this component of it, which comes up for annual review and update. I'll foreshadow some directions that strategically we'd like to take with with this component. And really it's just foreshadowing future action, which will include more specifics and things like that. So, quick refresher, the certified staff compensation model or framework, what it is built around is our compensation system for, people think of teachers, but certified staff is a lot more than just teachers. It includes all of the other certified staff areas, counselors, psychologists, special education, intervention, all of those areas. So the framework targets opportunities for increasing compensation for staff that acquire additional expertise in areas that the district pre-approves of. So those areas have to align, as it says in the second bullet point, to the district's strategic direction and goals, so that it's really driven by what the district will find most valuable for impacting students. The system values, both expertise that helps students find that career success, as well as college readiness, which aligns to what the district mission is. It's not just about one or the other. It looks to provide opportunities for that growth in expertise, as well as compensation at all levels, all the way from pre-K all the way up through the secondary levels of that. And then the model itself has been set in place for several years now, but there are certain components of it that it calls for to be annually reviewed and updated, and that's one of the areas that we are looking at today, which is the expertise pieces. So as we've been doing some research, we've been investigating additional opportunities for acknowledging and encouraging acquiring the different expertise areas. So I'm going to do a high-level overview of some of the big focus areas that we've had, as again, we look at both college readiness and career success and how we can have the most qualified staff possible to deliver on that mission. So first and foremost, when we talk about aligning to the district's strategic direction, we continue with an emphasis on literacy expertise. So one of the things acted on earlier this year was our ERE course, which is part of this menu. We continue to provide additional expertise pay around having reading licenses. We're looking at adding the literacy specialist license, which is an even higher level of expertise in the area of literacy. We are also looking at AP certification. We know that our community is proud that the West Bend high schools offer the greatest variety of AP courses that you're going to find anywhere around. Well, that requires staff who are certified to teach those. You can teach AP without the certification, technically, but you're not getting the level of the type of a student experience, nor the type of student success that we see on our AP tests from the teachers that we have, who are all officially certified in delivering AP instruction by the College Board. We know there's value in that, and we see that each year when our AP scores come back as exemplary as they do. That's on that kind of college readiness side of the table, but we also want to remember the career success piece of the mission, and that's where some of our other items go in terms of additional licensures around vocational licensing and things like that, as well as certifications on career and technical education areas, which are highlighted by the state's Act 59 legislation. What Act 59 is it really lays out a series of different types of certifications around technical education, business education, family and consumer science education that often align to what you might acquire at technical college or in other certification areas. So these are certifications that potentially a student can take directly to the workforce. Some of the more common ones that you might think of that the layman might be more familiar with might be like ASC certification around autos and things like that. We have teachers who are qualified and certified in several of those types of areas, and when you're certified in that, the Act 59 legislation lets you deliver that same certification then to your students, so that our students can walk out with a whole host, I don't know what the number is up to now, but it's a dozens and dozens of different certifications that our students can leave the high school with that immediately allow them to enter into the workforce. So our goal here is to provide incentive for staff to acquire those certifications by providing modest compensation tied to holding those certifications. Also, in really looking at responding to ensuring that we have the best environment for students and meeting the behavioral needs of our students, we are looking at opportunities for providing additional coaching to staff around support for behavioral student needs and behavioral intervention strategies. There's some micro-credential opportunities that we've looked at tied to that. We've also looked at making sure that we're not losing track of any particular area, right? Like our students, all 6,000 of them, they're involved in a wide range of different activities that are met by a wide range of different teacher types and certified staff types, right? So things like world language, there's some very high level world language type certifications that really make that teacher more than just your typical type world language teacher, but that upper echelon expert. And we found some opportunities that we think incentivize that. DHH, deaf and hard of hearing services. We want to remember all of our students. We've looked at some opportunities to incentivize some extra expertise for our speech teachers, which is actually, that one in particular is a financial benefit to the district because the opportunity that we identified allows those speech teachers to be able to build a Medicaid system for services that we provide that the Medicaid system then doesn't have to. So they actually reimburse the school district, and that alone the district receives hundreds of thousands of dollars in reimbursements from Medicaid for. So it's kind of a win-win. We get even higher trained teachers, as well as these reimbursements from the state because of the ability to bill for those services. We are looking at also then for the fall being able to create an opportunity for staff to make suggestions, recommendations, nominations, whatever you want to call them, of additional opportunities for the future. I know I'm not the expert in every single content area that we offer, so we want to create, we've been creating a rubric and submission opportunities so that staff continue to help grow this menu. Again, it's all about really making us a district that is a home base for high-level expertise. And we know that we have a lot of really expert staff who can help feed that goal. Looking at a projected July 25th follow-up with the board with additional information. The other annual updates is really looking at, are there any areas that already exist that we need to do a modest increase for to keep up with just inflationary rates and things like that by doing kind of small annual increases. That way you avoid what the district has run into in past years over a couple decades, which is these catch-up provisions where you find that things have been frozen for several years and now you need a larger provision to catch up. So just analyzing where there may be need to those pieces as well. So again, just trying to foreshadow a deeper discussion that'll be coming on the 25th. But at this point, I think answer any questions about the system from anybody.
Remind me again, where do our staff members take these classes?
So the certifications are actually a wide range of areas. We do have some partner universities that we've worked with in the past and will continue to work with. But really our goal is to create lots of opportunity so that we don't pigeonhole into one specific area. So Concordia University has been a great partner for us, and they continue to be for facilitating some of these offerings, which by being offered by a 4-year accredited university ensures that those certifications are transferable, anywhere. But really on a lot of these, you talk about ADP, other licensures, like reading licenses, special education, additional licenses. By offering it as part of a licensure program, that ensures that we don't have to maintain like an internal economy around professional development of these, but these are going to be around for the long haul in the marketplace. And our staff can shop around and find the best program that fits their needs, and then that would qualify for licensure from one of the kind of standard statewide or nationwide licensing type organizations. So like board certification, great example. That's a national board certification, right? So we try to find ones that are that have that kind of tie into another organization, so that it's not where it's here this year, but next year it's gone. You know, we want things that are gonna stand the test of time.
And then remind me again, if I enroll in a class it costs $2,000, the district doesn't pay for that up front. And as it relates to the pay of the employee, the district, if you get that certification, you have an opportunity to earn more pay, which maybe over the course of 2 years pays that back. And then in year 3, it's more money in your own pocket, if you will, correct?
Correct. The upfront investment is by the staff member. They pay the tuition, they complete the coursework. It's only after it's been completed and documentation's been submitted that then the corresponding stipend that goes with that is applied for the teacher. The amount of time that it takes to kind of recoup your initial investment really changes, right? Because it depends on which university you go through, all those sorts of things. And then also somewhat can be tied to, its alignment with certain targeted things, right? So with ERE, which we came to the board earlier this year, we are heavily invested in ensuring that we get as many ERE reading certified staff as possible. And then, the stipends are kind of determined commensurate with alignment with those goals, for sure.
Thank you.
I just have a comment and then maybe 2 questions. You could come to the July 25th with just a little bit more detail on. Just the comment is, I'm glad we were talking about it today and we need to talk about it more. Just our advanced placement and our career and technical education is outstanding. We set ourselves apart from the community. We get our kids with options and ready, and I just think we need to do more of that. So I like having our certifications and staff tied to that. So maybe just 2 questions are like, what percentage of the staff have these certifications? Would be a question, and are we seeing that rate go up? And then how much extra money is being paid annually to people with these certifications as it affects the budget items? So
Sure.
I think it's
So
excellent.
on the first one, the number is gonna, on both of these, it's gonna be a little bit difficult today for me to give you a ton of detail without it being memorable. And the number of staff holding the certifications, really depends what level we're talking about, right? So the reading license is far more common at the elementary or maybe middle elementary level. Obviously AP and the Act 59 certification is gonna be, at the secondary level. So it's really gonna be dependent on which certification we're looking at. A big part of this is, yes, there are some staff that currently have these certifications, but we wanna largely incentivize to grow that number even more so, right? Especially on certain things like with AP. So we may only have one teacher this year who's teaching, or it might be AP biology, I'll just throw it out there as an example, right? But we know that having that training from AP is beneficial to all biology courses, not just AP. On top of that, that allows us to deepen our bench, so let's say our regular, in this case, AP bio teacher goes on to leave of absence, has a baby, something like that. This gives us, it benefits the district in that we have other people who can step in and provide the really high quality training for that course, whereas most districts in that situation, they end up putting a sub in who isn't trained and students don't get as good experience. So this really sets the district up to provide a really excellent continuity of experience for its students as well. On the career the career and technical education side of things, that's where you see a very large number of different certification types. I believe this model will help us retain the staff that we have. We are very blessed to have 8 tech ed teachers alone, plus 4 business ed teachers and 3 family and consumer science teachers, making up that whole career and tech ed group there. And we've been able to retain, for example, on the tech ed side, which is probably the most competitive teacher market that's out there today, we've been able to retain those staff several years in a row, which most places can't say. And by growing that program the way we have, we've also been able to really specialize in a lot of areas there. Where you go to a smaller school or a school that hasn't invested as well in tech ed, They're asking one teacher to teach carpentry, welding, robotics, whereas the way we continue to invest in this and the way we're proposing to continue to invest, we think helps us continue to just really build that expertise above and beyond what you're gonna see anywhere else. So in terms of the actual dollar amounts, they vary by certification, so when we come forward with more information, I'll provide those for you. The existing ones already in place, we have publicly available and staff can currently see them. What I'm really talking about are our expansion of that, and we'll bring that forward at that next meeting opportunity.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions for Lenny on this topic? Okay, looks like you're up next for the stop loss insurance renewal information.
Just a moment, please. So this is also an overview. We aren't ready to bring the renewal forward, but the reason that we're bringing an overview forward at this point is that stop loss insurance operates a little bit differently from most other insurance products, and that your renewal timeline ends up being very quick, and I'll explain why that is in a short amount of time. So I want to front load some information as just a refresher around stop loss insurance for everyone. We generally only talk about it once a year, and it's kind of a complicated matter you don't typically deal with regularly in any field, so want to be able to refresh that and position us so that when the opportunity comes for renewal that we are poised to act. So I'm just going to have kind of three key overviews today. What is stop loss insurance, a little bit about the market for stop loss insurance, and then just our projections and then a timeline for action. So again, trying to keep it as simple as possible here. So stop loss insurance is going to cover your entire health insurance plan. Your health insurance plan is really two things. It's your medical coverage, so paying doctor's claims, ER bills, urgent care, all those sorts of claims, as well as your pharmacy claims are also protected by stop loss insurance. So, we generally think of pharmacy as, I gotta go down and get the, $10, $15 prescription at Walgreens, but pharmacy can be administered in a hospital, and pharmacy can be extremely expensive, which we're gonna talk about momentarily, because it's becoming the largest driver of cost on stop loss insurance. So what stop loss insurance, why have it, is first and foremost, it saves money for the district. It allows the district to operate as a self-funded insurance organization. You would not operate as a self-funded organization without stop loss insurance. There are basically two ways to operate: a fully funded organization or a self-funded. Fully funded is what you're going to find in smaller organizations typically, and what they do is they go and call the insurance company and say, I want to buy insurance for my 400 and whatever number of employees. What's it going to cost me? And the insurance company says, you must pay whatever amount per month, okay? And it won't change that year, no matter if everybody goes to the doctor or nobody does. That's a fully funded organization. The organization knows the cost up front and pays that month to month. The deal there is that your insurance company is going to want to make a profit, so they build a margin in their cost that they're charging, correct? The alternative is to be self-funded, which is what Weston School District is, and what you're going to find in larger organizations. The school district actually maintains a reserve where we pay the cost of all claims directly out of our reserves. So if I myself as an employee of the district don't go to the doctor all year, the district pays $0 for my care needs. I didn't have any claims. Conversely, if I am having major surgeries or a major illness, the district's going to pay all of those expenses. So stop loss insurance is your protection in that situation. It stops your losses at a certain dollar. That's why it's called stop loss insurance. So for example, someone our stop loss insurance cutoff is $250,000 per person. So let's say I suffer from a catastrophic illness. It's going to cost $1 million in care. The district's only going to be responsible up to that first $250,000. The remainder will be covered by your stop loss insurance. So if you don't have stop loss insurance, when I say why have it, if you don't have it, there is no limit on what your potential liability is, which is not obviously a place that you ever want to operate. So It's a necessary expense for self-funded organizations. We choose to be self-funded because we save a significant amount of money by not paying that margin to the insurance company. The profit margins are sizable in the insurance industry, as you can probably guess, and by self-insuring, we're cutting out that middleman person and the profit that they're taking. Stop loss insurance is kind of part of the cost you incur because of that. And then there's different pieces I don't need to get into individually. We have different deductibles, those sorts of things. So information about our specific stop loss policy, our current vendor is called QBE. We pay an annual premium about $630,000. It's a sizable amount, but when I talk to you in a moment about the costs associated with high cost claimants, you'll see why. Each year we're given a maximum possible increase amount for our renewal. So on our renewal this year, they'll say, here's your amount for this year, and next year we can't increase it more than X%, which is obviously beneficial for us for planning purposes and avoiding any kind of catastrophic situation. Stop loss insurance, the reason that it'll come up for renewal a little bit odd times because the policy year that it just happens to be on is kind of an off timeline. It's a September to August 31st. So we talked about the stop loss market. It comes up for renewal each year. It is one of, if not the most volatile insurance market that exists in just insurance markets in general. That is because it is largely tied to the claims that you have from your employees and because of the constant flow of new expensive medical care opportunities for people to be able to have. So the first volatility piece is around your own claims. So we may have several years where we don't have anyone hitting that $250,000 mark for what's called a high cost claim. Well, then stop loss insurance is going to say, hey, you're not costing us anything. We're gonna drop your rates. Your rates are looking real good. You can get one or two high cost claimants with a very significant illness that may potentially be a recurring illness year after year, and that can result in a substantial increase in your premium simply off of just a small number of people. That makes the volatility very high. At the same time, we live in a great country that has the most advanced medical care in the world, and that's because we're developing new treatments, new drugs all the time. Well, those new treatments, new drugs are very expensive. So we also lead the world in terms of expensive healthcare options. And that particularly, as I say in the next point, applies to pharmacy. There are some drugs out there that, thank God that they save lives that otherwise would not be saved, but they're unbelievably expensive. I mean, there are drugs out on the market now, several drugs right now, that a single dose can cost more than $1 million. Or where 1 year's supply can cost you $2 million, right? Well, when you look at a premium of $600,000, well, one of those drugs alone obviously eats up the entire premium and then some. So stop loss carriers have to protect themselves against those situations. And if you have someone come onto your plan, or a few people come onto your plan who are potential users of those high cost drugs, that's going to significantly impact your renewal. So therefore, stop loss insurance reacts very strongly to major medical conditions. Like I said, a few people can impact it heavily. So the final piece here is we just kind of look ahead on our projections and time. So the market norm right now is actually lower than previous years at a 20 to 25% renewal, which you might say, holy cow, that's a high renewal rate. I wouldn't accept that on many things. But in stop loss, that's actually a decent year. Often it's 30, 35% because of the reasons that I explained earlier. That's the market norm. Our renewal is going to be very specific to our specific situations and the medical needs of our particular plan participants. Our renewal cost, based on initial information that we have around the usage of our high cost claimants, is expected to be above that 20% number, but we'll see where it comes in. Our insurance broker is currently in those negotiations. You end up with a very short time frame for renewal. So we'll bring that forward for action next time around. And the reason you have a short time frame for renewal is every month you go by, the stop loss carriers will rerun the data every month to see are there any new high cost things that have come on. So when you get the quote, the time to act is immediately before a new month's data comes up. So I've tried to give a brief overview of that. It's not something we talk about very often, except once a year. Not the most exciting topic either, but hopefully I've kind of explained it so that we can set the table for when that renewal comes up, perhaps at the next board meeting, if not, right away in August.
Any questions for Mr. Hanson from the board?
How often do you shop around providers?
Every year.
Every year.
So stop loss is different from a lot of insurance markets that, okay, you start with 20 vendors, more than half right off the bat say we're not interested. It's such a risky market that they don't vastly expand their books of business very quickly because they have to be so careful who they take on as new business because of the volatility of it. So immediately you slash out a chunk of that, and then it narrows out. But we go to bid on this every year.
The renewal cost, you said it was a little bit higher than normal. That's all built into the budget already though. What do you guys usually expect for a renewal?
So stop loss renewal is a component of our entire health insurance renewal. So what Andy and the finance team will do is they'll work with the insurance broker to take whatever that stop loss renewal is, and then they'll build that into the total insurance plan renewal. So let's say we're planning on an 8% increase in the cost of health insurance. That would include whatever the stop loss increase has been. As the year progresses, starting in April, we already start to get some very preliminary projections of our health insurance renewal. And then as more data comes in each month, that projection kind of firms up as time goes on. We generally end up with a firm projection in August for the following year, because what you're really doing is you're using prior year claims to imagine what it's going to be for January 1st of the next year. See, our insurance plan doesn't operate on fiscal year. Our insurance plan is on calendar year, which is another kind of caveat that you have to build into that. So if we come back with a bigger than 20% renewal on stop loss, which I think is likely at this point, given some of the information we have just about around claims that are on our plan, that will cause a nudging up of the overall health insurance renewal budget that Andy and his team built. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yeah. So put in perspective. So I said $630,000 for stop loss insurance. The entire health insurance plan is $12 million. Okay. So 20% on 600 is roughly $120,000 and $130,000. So out of 12 million, not as big of a impact as it is on just the stop loss.
Thank you.
I think I did the math right in my head.
Chris wasn't here to help.
Anybody else?
Well, I just got one comment and a quasi question. I give you an A on explaining the insurance. I learned a lot, and I've been around the block. So thank you for helping educate myself and just our community on the different types of insurance, because it is, if you think of our overall cost per student, that $12 million is in there. And maybe just my question is, if we were to go to market, and I know we have a very good plan, what would we be spending if we didn't spend our 12 million on a self-insured plan? Would it be 15 million? Would it be 20 million for a comparable plan in the insurance market space?
So I don't want to speculate too much, but I can say I was talking to another HR director of a little bit, not a little bit, smaller than us district, maybe 4,000 to 5,000 students, and they were going from fully insured to self-insured, and they were going to save a minimum of $1 million, and they're smaller than us. So again, you can't perfectly predict it, but I would feel extremely confident saying it is undoubtedly in the 7 figures what we save by being self-funded. You also just, and Andy can speak to this better than I ever could, around certain flexibilities that you have in the way you design your plan and options and opportunities you provide for staff in a self-funded plan that the government doesn't allow fully insured plans to provide.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Thank you for the excellent explanations. All right, looks like our next information is future agenda items. Our next board meeting Actually, pardon me, we have a curriculum committee scheduled for July 19th at 8:30 at the Education Service Center. We have regular board meeting scheduled for July 25th at 5:30 here at the Education Service Center. July 27th, we have a policy committee meeting scheduled for 4 p.m. here again at the ESC. And then August 8th, another regular scheduled board meeting at 5:30 at the Education Service Center. And would there be any information that you would like for follow-up or future communication from superintendent or any of the other departments? Anyone on the board?
I understand.
Yes.
And I did, run this by Jen, she gave me a couple notes, cause I was struggling with how to ask these. But I just wanted to bring up for, future items or discussion, when the next discussion, we can include, attention to removal of the ESSER funds in the years to come, and ways we can achieve a balanced budget. And that's kind of regarding some of the Jackson Elementary, conversation that maybe we can start looking at again. I think it's kind of important to start, bringing that up again and discussing, how we're gonna help that community grow with a new school, or, what the possibilities is to take that ESSER grant or funds and stuff and see if there's other ways to use it for those, so.
So we talked a little bit, just so I've got that, our next piece that Andy will do in budget is at our next July meeting, so I'll have him more just target that and include that so you can see that separately. And then we'd be on track to do our facilities update in August to talk about those components, and we'll really kind of extract a whole Jackson Elementary piece and talk about options there. So we'll make sure and include those on formal board agendas.
Anything else, anyone? Okay, then I will make a motion to adjourn into executive session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.851C to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and take any such, any such action if necessary based on its discussion, namely compensation and employment. And this will be a roll call vote.
I'll second.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Okay, roll call. Mr. Donaldson?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Ms. Jessamine votes yes. Mr. Zweigert is absent. Ms. Sergat?
Yes.
Mr. Rebels?
Yes.
And Ms. Schmidt is also absent.